news. Guess what? Really exciting news. I got written in for an art competition. I've been going to art school now for about a year and a half, and my teacher from art school said, hey, there's this contest coming up. Who wants to join in? Who wants to get written in? So I was like, do I want to try this? Do I not? And I decided, like, why the hell not? So I've got written into my first art competition, and the subject is fameuze, which translates to either famous or large families. So it kind of has a double meaning, the word. And I've been creating lots of different characters. So I have like about 13 different people in this family and this whole scene. Because it's such a big project, I ended up breaking it down into smaller parts. And I'm going to give you an insight in my creative process. To start on this project, before I drew anything else, I broke the two words down and started brainstorming. So I have the first word, fameuze. I looked for words associated with it and so on, and different synonyms. Then I went to the second word, families, and then one of my ideas was to draw the royal family, the British royal family, but then I decided to scrap that because I thought it was a bit cliche. Another idea I had was Suske and Wiske, which is a famous Dutch comic. I believe in English it's called Spike and Susie. They had a comic book called fameuze, so it kind of linked them together. And I even took inspiration from Encanto because the family Monregal was a really big family. I'm trying to think, like, how can I do this? And I wasn't quite sure what I wanted. Then I thought about it a bit more and decided, partly based on Encanto, I wanted a big family that was lively, and I didn't know exactly what they're doing, but I just wanted a big family with quirky characters that were lively. And then I ended up coming up with my characters. I took inspiration from a comic book artist from Brussels called Zidrou, and he wrote this absolutely stunning comic book series called Mooie Zomers, or Beautiful Summers in English, and I really like the character designs. He also has certain quirky characters too. Inspired by that, Encanto, and the fact that I wanted a large family, I thought, maybe I should make them rather chaotic. I came up with different characters, so I had a kooky, eccentric grandma or great-grandma, and a cute baby, a tomboy girl, a vain teenager, an artistic uncle, pregnant aunt, a sulky preteen girl, a grungy teen boy, beefcake dad, a highly strung mum, and I thought of having a pug, a golden retriever, and a cat or two chasing each other. I wasn't quite sure about the animals. Then I had the grumpy grandpa, sweet grandma, and a rich uncle, and I ended up with 13 different characters. I did cut back on a few characters, and then I started sketching them. So here I have the beefcake dad and the highly strung mum. These are really rough, and I didn't have a reference, I just drew from my head. Then the grandma who's sitting in a wheelchair, and I quite like. Then we have the little girl, tomboy girl with her sword, a cute baby, and the selfie teen. So again, these were just the rough sketches. Then you have the artistic uncle, pregnant aunt, and then the other characters. And then I needed to do it in a layout. The first layout I came up with was having them all in a line, and I thought, hey, maybe it's just them in a row and they're at a photography studio. But then there wasn't quite the chaos in there, the element of chaos I wanted. My art teacher suggested maybe you should spread them out a bit more in the photography studio, because now they look like they're all on one plane. Then the second design, and these are really rough scribbles, you know, this is why I like to plan it, because sometimes people just start drawing and then you're suddenly like, oh wait, I don't have enough room, or I want to do that differently, and then you're constantly rubbing out, you know, it ruins the paper as well. I always like to plan things out in advance, and then following my teacher's suggestions, I decided the baby I want on the foreground kind of looking at the camera, and then all the characters kind of spread out. And once I was happy with my thumbnail, I started refining the characters. I redrew the grandma, and I'm a lot happier with this, although she doesn't quite seem right in her wheelchair, the way she's sitting. Then we have the beefcake dad, who I redrew, although I didn't have room for the legs. That's the downside of kind of working on paper. I'm not very good at proportions, whereas because I'm used to drawing digitally, you can just pinch to make it bigger or smaller and it fits. The mum I quite liked as well, rather highly strung looking woman. Then of course the baby, I really like the expression of the baby. I didn't change much on that, just the eye was a bit wonky. Then the girl, although the face wasn't quite right. The next step was to import everything digitally so I could carry on refining the drawing. As you can see, I already said I wasn't happy with the girl's head, so then I started going over it and moving things around and readjusting the drawing until I was happy with the result. For the parents, I found them in a rather static pose, kind of a boring pose, so I decided to look up some reference pictures, and then I saw this nice picture of a couple dancing, which then I used as my reference to have them in a more dynamic pose, as you can see here. For the grandmother, I redrew her body and the wheelchair because she didn't quite feel like she was actually sitting in the wheelchair. Once I'd adjusted it, it felt like she was in a more natural pose. Other characters I adjusted were the selfie taking teen. I decided to draw her from behind and have her face reflected in her phone. The grumpy grandpa ended up being more of a fun-loving, happy-go-lucky grandpa. The aunt and uncle, I decided to draw them as a loving couple together. Then I had the moody teen, the rich uncle, who's kind of an impatient guy, and the teen that was just rocking out. Last but not least, I had a dog chasing a cat. I imported everything into Photoshop, and I took each individual character and I compiled them together to make my layout, which was based on my previous sketch. As you can see here, I'm working on the layout. It wasn't quite clear if it had to be traditional or digital art, and I would have gone complete digital, but I decided, heck, I want to try it traditional, and I wanted to paint because I've been using gouache a lot and I quite like it, and I've been experimenting with acrylics. I decided to print everything off and stick it all together. Now, because my printer only can print up to A4, I had to print each one off and cut it out and stick it together. After I did all that, I needed to paint it on something, and I did think of paper, but then I didn't know if it would hold up the weight of the paint. The dimensions of the artwork, according to the description of the contest, was that it had to be 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters, although they didn't specify what material you could use. I decided I had some leftover cardboard from a previous project. It's about 3mm thick. The reason I chose that is because it was sturdy enough to carry the paint, whereas paper, I was a bit worried that the paint might be too heavy for the paper, or it curl, or something go wrong, so I decided to use the cardboard. I had leftover scraps anyway that needed using. I did think at one point of using canvas, but I wanted a smooth surface to paint on. After I finished cutting everything out, it was time to prime. The reason why I primed is because it's cardboard, and if I didn't do this and I started to paint on it, the water from the paint would get sucked into the cardboard and it would make the cardboard really soggy. By doing this extra step, I have the surface nice and primed and smooth. The deadline for my art contest is the 17th of January, so I still have another 10 days left to finish a painting. I think I spent a lot of time preparing, and now it's time to get on and paint. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you found it interesting and if you would like to see my progress, you can hit the subscribe button and drop a like as well. You can also turn on the bell notification so you get notified as soon as the next video is ready, and I will see you next week and I will give an update on my progress.